good morning, Joanna. How are you?
Good morning, Richard. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent and so excited to finally have an opportunity to chat with you. I was thinking back this morning. We met about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. Time is just like a blur, like
Yeah,
things just go by,
it,
right?
it's flying. It's flying. Yeah, I think it was like second week of February. Yeah, so
February,
this
yeah.
is yeah.
Yeah.
So it's flying. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. But
yeah,
anyways, and I
yeah.
know we were able to reconnect and schedule this time together. And I'm really excited to talk with you. We've got a lot of connections to each other, which is really exciting, and really want to talk about your founder journey and Simply Here. But before we get into all of that, Joanna Rosenberg, welcome to Meeting You podcast. We're so excited to have you. Could you just give us a little
Yeah.
introduction as to who you are, Joanna?
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It was great meeting you at the UConn event a few
Yeah.
weeks back. I felt like I was back home. Yeah, no, Joanna Rosenberg. I founded Simply Here uh, back in 2017, and
Wow.
I live in the Boston area, so I'm north of
Mhm,
Boston,
mhm.
in Melrose, Massachusetts, and I have been connected with the UConn alumni group here. The team is great, and they've really done a great job at building out the Boston
They have.
alumni network. So
They
it's
really have.
exciting to see. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I've worked. My background is mostly in, marketing in the tech space. So, product
Mhm.
marketing has been sort of my main career. Since graduating from school. Had a couple of early starts doing some different things, but most of it's been in the product marketing space. With B2B tech companies that have been based in the Boston area. And so, yes, bringing that experience to what I'm doing with Simply Here is what I'm focusing on at this time.
Awesome. And another connection point that you and I have is, I've been a product manager most of my
Yes,
career. You've been a product marketer most of
yes,
your career, and everybody knows that if a company is smart, the product managers and the product marketers work really closely together to make
yes.
sure that there's a lot of value associated with what you're building. If you're in an organization where product management and product marketing don't jive well, it's usually not a good thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I hear that, like, it's that sigh of exasperation, like I've been there when it's not good, and yes, it's isn't good.
Yeah, it can work, and it can work. You just have to have the right organization for it, and
Yeah,
yeah,
ab-
absolutely.
absolutely. So you mentioned UConn. That's where we met, at a Boston
Yeah.
UConn foundation slash alumni event. Let's start with your UConn story. So your time at UConn. Tell me a little bit about maybe how it shaped you personally or professionally, and are there any through lines today, Joanna, to what you did at UConn to the work you're doing with Simply Here?
Yeah, I started, going into UConn, at the age of 18. I didn't go. I definitely didn't see myself doing this. If you had asked me back then, I
Yeah.
went in. I went in as a liberal arts major, and I
Mhm.
really just studying. I wanted to study, politics and history, international relations,
Love it.
all of that stuff, and um, I basically went in I spent my time at UConn really trying to just understand the world, like understand
Mm,
how the world works.
mhm.
And um, that was kind of my priority at the time. I didn't see myself in business immediately.
Right.
I didn't see the connection yet at that time,
Yeah.
and so I think that has, shaped, even though I eventually got into the business world, I
Mhm.
feel that I've always had that lens of, how does this impact, the economy? How does this impact the community at large? How does this
Mm.
impact, just the way we interact with each other? So it's just, it's making that connection between business and how it impacts, really the community. And so I
Y
think that kind of, that's always been in the back of my mind. And I think
Right.
that's always something throughout the years I've always asked myself, why am I doing this? What,
What's my
what,
why? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think that that's always been, guiding me throughout the years.
Mm. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's funny, when you talked about, I went to Yukon and I'm trying to figure out how the world works, right? From this little
Yeah.
cow pasture in Storrs, Connecticut, right? You're trying to
Yes.
figure out how the world works. And I was a liberal arts undergrad as well, so we have that
Mhm.
again in common,
Yeah.
and made the transition or transcendence into
Mhm.
business, which I never thought I would
Yeah.
do as well. So it's really really interesting, right? But I do think Yukon, it's a really really special place, and I kind of joke that it's like you're trying to figure out how the world works from this little cow pasture in Storrs, Connecticut. But some of the most amazing minds are in that cow pasture,
Yes.
and you can really put yourself into situations where you can learn a lot if you just be open to it, right? And
Yeah,
just it's
absolutely.
fabulous, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Simply Here.
Yes.
First of all, what is Simply Here?
What is it?
Yeah, and then what inspired the creation of Simply Here, and what are you trying to do with it?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a journey. It it started out as really just from a personal kind of sad story.
Mm,
But try to keep it hopeful. But it started out when my mother was diagnosed with ALS
mm.
back in 2012,
Mm.
and she passed away in 2014. During that
Sorry.
period of two, thank you, during that
Yeah.
period of 2 years, she lost her ability to communicate. And so it
Mm,
was, that was a really difficult, I mean, losing mobility is difficult,
right.
when that's difficult enough, but when a person can't, all of a sudden can't say what they want to say to you,
Sure.
that was a double whammy. And so,
Right.
at the time, we were looking for different tools, apps,
Mm,
just to help communicate, but there really wasn't a lot out there at the time. There
sure.
were a lot more things that, there
Yeah,
was some
2012.
stuff, they were a little clunky, they were,
Yeah.
and my mother was older too, and so she
Mm,
was in her early 80s, and so she wasn't using, she didn't use tech, and so,
right.
but so that made it a little extra hard too. But I said to myself, I really wish we had a tool that was just easier for
Yeah.
her to be able to say what she wanted to say to us.
Mhm.
So that always stuck in my mind. Even a couple of years after she passed away, I kept thinking about this. And
Mm.
at the time, I was working at a company called Veracode, which is in the
Yep.
in the Boston area, and we used to do hackathons, which were great, and
Yeah.
which were a lot of fun. And there actually was another, it was a coworker of mine who her mom was currently an ALS patient, and so she and I and a couple other people did a hackathon project where we came up with a mock-up of an app that would help an ALS patient communicate with their caregiver. And so we had this idea of a design, and we did it for hackathon. It was great. So it's again, it just kind of kept germinating in my mind, like how can we
Yeah.
take this um, and make this available. And so that so fast forward to 2017, I entered uh, an accelerator program that was based in Cambridge, and got the still had that idea for the app, and really got it set up as a business.
Mm.
um and that's how I founded it. There was during in that part of that accelerator program.
Which program was that, Joanna?
Founder Institute. They're
Oh, okay.
based
Yeah.
out of the West. They're a West Coast
Mm.
accelerator, but they have chapters, all over the country, all over the world now, really. And so it was one of those programs where you entered and then you had to survive it. So I didn't get cut. So I so
You
that was
made it
exciting.
through. You
I
made it
made
through.
it
That
through.
is
Yeah.
that is exciting. I'm
Yeah.
impressed by what you said to Joanna. Well, I'm impressed by a couple of things. One, for those folks that don't know Veracode, they're not in the healthcare space, right? I mean, they're
No, it's
not
a
in the
cybersecurity
yeah,
company.
cybersecurity company. So the
Yeah.
fact that they do these hackathons and allow people to kind of really just um hack on any idea is very
Yeah.
impressive and
Yeah.
progressive. So kudos to them for that. But then just notion of like this thing was still gnawing at you, right? Gnawing at
Yes.
you, that
Yes.
even after you got through the hackathon, you kind of went into the Founder Institute and the accelerator and founded your business because it sounds like you just couldn't let it go.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That's amazing. So as you think now about kind of the values that are important to Simply Here,
Mhm.
and I can imagine there's a lot associated with accessibility and inclusion. You
Yes.
mentioned your mom's debilitation and her, and the losing her ability to speak. Talk to me a little bit about the impact that you hope Simply Here brings, and what defines sort of success for Simply Here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, really, the big, the core functionality and really the key, um, priority for the app is accessibility,
Mhm.
and allowing a person, whether that, depending, and they can have a variety of different conditions that limit
Mhm.
their ability to
Sure.
communicate, or they're just, they may just want to have an easy way to get in touch with the person caring for them,
Mhm.
without having to text, a bunch of things, so I
Right.
think that, accessibility, in terms of design, so,
Mhm.
things like color, things like font size,
Yeah.
those are things I learned about during this whole process. So
Sure.
when I got feedback from, from people that work in assisted living, the company I worked with to design the latest version of the app, they had a lot. They were in, some of them, a couple of them were medical, had medical background, healthcare professionals. So they really focused on the patient point of view, and so, and
Nice.
they did usability testing for me,
Mhm.
with patients and some caregivers as well, to confirm that they know where to go on this app. So that's
Mhm.
a really, so that's not an easy thing, because we take
No.
things for granted. We just assume, we just do things on an app, and just kind of play around with it, and just a lot of the stuff is intuitive, but it really
Right.
takes it actually, when you're designing, you have to think of every little step
Tiny
along the
thing.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think
yeah,
it's as designers too, you have to be careful about bias, to your point, right? You have to be
yes,
careful about, well, this is just gonna be intuitive, it's gonna work, and
yeah,
if you don't do the, you mentioned the testing and the validation, then it's a real missed opportunity, right, for
yeah,
usability.
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely,
As a female founder, because this is a show that is focused on
yes.
women entrepreneurs and female founders. Again, like most of the entrepreneurs that we talk to, their stories are very personal. Why they started their companies is
Mhm,
very personal. It is very personal for you, Joanna, with Simply Here. But what are some of the more meaningful, I wouldn't say lessons necessarily, Joanna, but just experiences that you've kind of learned as a founder, maybe specifically as a female founder, as you've
mhm,
been navigating this? You were in the tech space for a long time. Now
yeah,
you're sort of in the tech for good space, or
yes,
the tech for impact space.
yes.
How's that felt as a female founder, Joanna?
Well, I think the nature of what I'm doing is, is, in general, the feedback, the response I get when
Mhm.
I talk about Simply Here is,
Mhm.
it's always been positive. I mean, it's,
Mhm.
because of what, it's like, oh gosh, helping, with caregiving, helping, people who can't communicate. It's like, what's not,
Yeah,
how can you
what's not
hate
to
it,
like? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The mission
yeah,
the mission is an extremely
yeah,
a valuable mission, right?
yeah.
And yeah, yeah, and
And
socially important mission.
yeah, so that part of it is great, and I think that, as being a female in, ca- in general, the percent, the whole caregiving
Sure.
world definitely leans more female. Although there are more, you're seeing more men take on
Mhm.
these responsibilities as
Caregiver
well.
roles. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot more of that, but in general, it is, it is, it is women who are the primary caregivers in family situations. It's women who work as professional caregivers, like home health
Right.
care aides, et cetera. So,
Right.
yeah, so I think it makes, so yeah, so I think it just, the alignment is pretty natural.
Mhm.
I mean, I say like what I do, the sort of the, um, and I think it's as a first time founder too, it's
Yeah.
I've been figuring things out, as along the way, but a lot of when you get into that startup world, it's sort of like, it's investors, it's, are you backed by this
Mhm.
person, it's a whole network of entrepreneurs and investors that I was trying to learn about, and it's I'm not saying it's being a female is trickier because we're still kind of new to it. We're
Right.
still
Sure.
kind of the minority. So we
Yes.
don't have that built, we don't have the many years of connections. And
Mm.
so it's more work. So
Yeah.
in that sense. So that's the hard part because you want to focus on your business, but then you're like, I still have to like kind of navigate this world of startup. And I've had people tell me, like, you're never going to get venture funding for this. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. So it's like, I mean, whatever someone says, you're never gonna, then it makes me work harder because
Right,
I like to prove
right.
that.
And prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it seems to me like, yes, of course, the burden of proof is so much higher for female founders, especially in the venture capital space, to get venture
Yes.
funding. But what I'm
Yes.
hearing from you is it's not about getting funding, right? It's about you're going to create this product, the evolution of this product, what you're trying to do from
Yeah.
accessibility and innovation and accessibility. It's not about your end goal is not funding. Let's put it that way.
Right. Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone taught, I think in a way that like it kind of distracted. It's like focusing on funding kind of just, really distracted me from
Yeah.
serving the mission. And
Right.
so it's like, well, you got to get funding. You got to get funding. And then it's like, okay, so I go down this rabbit hole of trying to get funding,
Mm.
that's time away from making sure I deliver a good product
Yeah. Yeah.
my market. And so it's hard. It's
Yeah.
like it's balancing the two.
I talked to another founder the other day, and she just said, "Look, we just stopped fundraising. Like we just stopped doing it, right? And we just focused on our product, our
Yeah.
mission, our impact, our story. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, her phone started ringing, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it was no longer her pushing out and asking it. Her phone started ringing,
Yeah.
which was crazy. What kind
Yes.
of founder are you, Joanna? Are you a go fast and break things kind of founder? Are you slow and deliberate and methodical kind of founder? Are you somewhere in the middle? I'm curious as to what your general approach is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a go fast, break things person. I would say, my approach has been it's been cautious. It's been, for instance, I rolled out a first version of the app
Mhm.
in early 2019, and it was done, at a low cost open source platform.
Right.
Um,
Which makes sense because you're not funded. You're bootstrapping
yeah,
this.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was bootstrapping. So I'm like, yeah, I found a good developer to help me with that. What was not done at that time was that what we talked about earlier was that whole design process. And
Right.
so I like, oh, I had to like, so I realized, got the app out there, got some, people tried it out. It was, it was okay, but
Sure.
I wasn't excited about it. And
True
so that's what
MVP.
yeah, exactly. So I found this design firm. It was a company called Dream in Color, which
Hmm.
was, they were great. They really opened up some a new perspective for me in how this app should be designed. So that took a while to redesign that, and then I had to find developers to build it.
Right.
And so um, and that it was a more expensive app because it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was
A lot more richness, a lot
yeah.
more robust functionality, right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
that took a lot. I did a little bit of crowdfunding, got a little bit of
Cool.
money for that. That was hard. And
Yeah.
yes. And then just continue to bootstrap. So I have this new version out now, and it doesn't have every single thing in it
Mhm.
that I want, but it looks so much better.
Nice.
The website looks better. Everything just looks better. So I feel
Yeah.
more.
You
I'm
feel
not going to
good.
bear.
Yeah.
I feel good about it. So when I talk about it now, I feel much more confident. And because
Awesome.
it was done the right way. So I had to, it was a learning
Right.
process for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really important what you said about it was done the right way. You focused on the design, you focused on the
Yes.
value, the impact, all those things. And how's your traction right now, Joanna? Is it good? People
It,
using
it
it?
It's yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, people are testing. I mean, I'm basically kind of like word of mouth, like try
Nice.
it out, and setting it to different foundations and organizations,
Mm,
and yeah, units are ticking. So yeah, it's a lot. It's just going to be more. The website traction is good, so that's
that's
good.
awesome.
So because I'm using that as a way to
Mhm.
to figure out like figure out what people are searching up for too, like what
Sure,
are,
sure.
and to hope that and hopefully that'll help inform the product as well. So
And I have to assume you're leaning on your marketing and your product marketing skills and experience through all of
yeah,
this, right? Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I'm leaning
It's
on
very
that.
yeah.
And then, I have a couple of developers. They're friends of mine that are doing this
Yeah.
on the side. And
Yeah.
so it's
Everybody's hustling. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
exactly.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it.
So it's
You
fun.
mentioned a minute ago about your, you're out there and people are looking at it, testing it.
Yeah.
You're talking to different, AL assisted living facilities or others. Talk to
Mhm.
me a little bit about, the partnership and the community. I imagine here, Joanna, that collaboration is really important for you. And
Yes.
and has there been anything that's in particular that has helped accelerate what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, definitely, I would say the ALS community is probably it has been
Sure.
the most important because that's where my story started, and
Yeah.
I have the connection to it. So I've been following. There are a lot of ALS foundations and organizations that have popped up, really over
Mhm.
the past decade. Um, and there's been a couple, like there's one specifically that's based in the Boston area called the ALS Therapy Development Institute. So
Oh,
they do a
interesting.
lot of clinical trials, and then help get, and eventually help get some of these treatments to the next phase in the biotech pharma space.
Mm.
But they're local to the Boston area, and so they're great in terms of partnership, and you know I support them. They mention me, all that good stuff.
Yeah, good
Some other,
bi-directional. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's also another really good organization that's based in the New York area, and specifically for women in their 20s and 30s who have ALS, which
Okay.
is shocking. And
Yeah.
but they're pretty, they're just like a great group of women, very savvy. They're good for me to network with as well, and hopefully
Yeah.
I can provide them. My goal is to make this app a resource for all of these organizations, for
Sure.
their people
Absolutely.
who use them for support.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the main,
Mm.
the main group so far. But it can
And
extend out, to other conditions like,
sure.
a stroke, even autism could be. I receive
Mm.
feedback from a home health care agency saying, "Oh, I can use this for, for my autistic patients as well." So there's a lot of different ways it can be used.
That's outstanding. I think about like any communication barrier, right? And how
Yeah.
you
Right.
you can
Right.
you can overcome that communication barrier. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you, Joanna, is do you have that ICP, that ideal customer profile? It doesn't
Hmm.
sound like you necessarily. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it doesn't sound like you necessarily do just yet. It's you're still doing a lot of sort of testing and discovery.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
I mean, so far, I would say the individual, like that family caregiver,
Mhm.
it's a person that needs to keep track of what their person needs. So it could be a family caregiver, or it can be
Mhm.
a paid, a person they hire to take
Sure.
care of their family member. So
Home
right
health.
now, I think it would say very much like an in-home.
Mhm.
That's that's the that's the ideal customer at this moment. That's
Mhm.
what the app, serves. It is specifically, we state that it's for individual personal use. It's not licensed for, an institution or organization at this point, or any sort of
Mm.
clinical. Can
Right.
it be down the road? Yeah, I mean, that's a bigger conversation to have. I mean, there's any, apps that, or software that larger facilities or agencies use, they tend to be more integrated into back end systems like
Sure.
payroll and
Right.
electronic medical records. So that's just sort of that's a whole nother can of
Whole nother
worms.
yeah,
Yeah.
a whole nother conversation when you get into
Yeah.
something that feels more
Yeah.
like an enterprise solution from where you are
Right.
today. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
that's not where we are
yeah.
today.
But it's exciting to hear that you are looking really at these community collaborations. You mentioned these different,
Yes.
ALS groups, and they'll be amazing grassroots supporters for you and advocates for you. So that's sounds like a really important opportunity for you and an
Yeah.
important initiative, right? To have these partnerships. Yeah,
Yeah, and I enjoy, and it makes me, and I enjoy it. It
right.
fulfills me. So I like working with all of these people. So it makes everything, it's fun to do. So
Yeah,
it's not,
yeah.
it's not a chore by any means.
That's cool. Joanna, when you think about sort of innovation in
Mhm.
accessibility, and that's an area that clearly you're focused on, what
Mm.
are the big opportunities for innovation
Yeah.
in accessibility right now?
Well, yeah, one of the areas I'm looking at, and Apple is has rolled it out, is eye gaze technology, for instance. So that's
Mm,
something, especially for primarily for ALS patients who can't they lose, if they can't use a phone, if they can't use if their motor skills are diminished, there is a technology called eye gaze where you literally stare at the computer and you can type words using your eyes, right?
mhm,
And
right.
it's been worked on over the past several years. There's hardware that does it. It's hard. It's still in. There's a lot more to do to make it
Yeah.
easier. So Apple has an eye gaze feature now, which I have. So I'm looking at to see, how the app would work with that. So I'm hoping to get some people to test that out. So that's one area I'm particularly excited about because I get that question a lot. Like, well, what about when the person physically
Sure.
can't use the
Yeah,
phone?
it's a reasonable question,
Yeah.
right?
So that's
Mhm,
that's one area, and then
mm.
everybody's talking about AI, and
Really? I hadn't heard of it. What's
you
that?
haven't heard of that, yeah. But I think that what how can is there any sort of room for AI in this? The one area where I could see it working is it was a feature that I tried to work into the early version of the app, but it was too much of a manual process. Was for product recommendations for
Oh,
daily
interesting.
living.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that was something that I tried to kind of wedge into the first version, but didn't have the bandwidth to really
Mm,
manage.
mm.
So could AI take over in that and to help with personalized product recommendations, within the app or on the website? So that's something that
That sounds exciting. Yeah,
would
yeah,
be
and
interesting.
and a
Yeah.
really important adjacency, right? As you're like you say,
Yeah.
like what things are out there that already exist that can help me. That brings more value to your product in the sense that it's
Yeah.
curating and creating those recommendations. So that would be really
Yeah.
exciting as well. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was some of
very
the
good.
feedback I had years ago. A family caregiver said, "Oh, I'd love to be able to just find this kind of mug for my mom," and I'm
Right.
on Google all day.
Yeah,
The,
just searching and I can't find
yeah,
it. Yeah, that's
yeah,
really great.
yeah. So that's an area. I mean, that would be to me that would be a fun area to work
Mm,
on. So
yeah.
yeah. So we'll see. Yeah,
And I'm excited how you're thinking about how Simply Here can really kind of play an important role in innovation and accessibility. So
yeah,
that's really cool. That's really
yeah.
cool. I want you to imagine for a moment, Joanna, you're back on campus at Stores, and you're
Mhm.
sitting in the Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and you're an aspiring founder. You're an
Mhm.
aspiring early stage entrepreneur, someone trying to think about a mission driven startup.
Yep.
What does the Joanna of 2025 say to that person?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
advice do you give them?
Yeah, I would say, kind of harkening back to what I said earlier, it's it's really focus on the mission, focus
Mhm,
on the market you're trying to serve, um, and there's a lot of distractions, so you get pinged by by all there are a lot of startup events and
mhm.
organizations and it's overwhelming, and
Sure.
so the recommendation is is focus your time and energy, because
Yeah.
if you kind of get you pulled into a lot of different things, or you get pinged by a vendor that says they're going to help you, you might
Mm.
just take you down, nothing bad, but it might just take you down a path that
Sure.
you didn't really plan on doing, you waste a little bit of your time, so I would say, just again, always think about, what are you trying to, why are you doing this, what are you trying to offer, what's your product or service,
Yep.
and who are you serving?
Mm.
Are you
Mhm.
serving your market, or are you serving potential investors? You know what I mean? Like think about, and so that's something I learned
Yeah.
along the way. And
Yeah.
also I would say, just because a product is cool, seems really, is it a feature or a product seems really cool, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
people are going to use it right away.
Right. Absolutely. Right. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. Really good
So
distinction.
I learned that. So, So
No, I like what you're saying, Joanna, about like, you can kind of be like a professional startup event goer.
oh
There's
my
so
gosh.
many, you can spend all your time going to different startup, and some of them are wonderful, right?
Oh
To your
yeah, yeah.
point,
I
and
mean, they're
they're great
helpful. Yeah.
resources, but you have to be particular, right? And you have to think about prioritize your time. I like what you said about, define your problem, think about your opportunity, figure out your solution, like stay there, right?
Stay
That's
there.
what yeah, that's what you need to focus on, right? So much.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so you and I started chatting at the beginning of this call about how time is going by very quickly,
Yeah.
and our time is going by very quickly. What are the upcoming big features, big milestones for Simply Here as we just continue to plow through 2025?
Yeah, well the net some of the so we're so there, like I said, there's not there's I don't have everything in the product yet that I want to
Yeah,
have, but
right.
but the one area that was in the prototype
Mhm.
was a chat functionality. So
Mm.
similar to like a WhatsApp or a
Sure.
Messenger where more people can join the circle.
Oh, that's
That
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So and the reason for that is really like a lot of us have been through this with with a family member if they're sick or if they're
Mm.
they have to go to rehab. Oh, there's all these texts and emails flying around among
Right.
family members, and it's like hard to keep track. And so some people are texting there, some people are emailing there. Did you get that email? And then it's like you're trying to keep up with what's going on with your family member. And so the reason why I'd like to have this is to have a place where everything is communicated in this one app, so
Nice.
you
Yep.
keep track of
Centralized.
everything
Hmm.
centralized. Yep.
Mm.
So that's I'm scoping that out, to see what would be
Cool.
involved. So I have to scope everything, everything I want to do. I have to sit down with a developer and say
Yeah.
what's
How are we going to do
involved,
it? Yeah.
how many
Yeah.
hours is it going to take, how many steps there are, the user flow. It's like
It's
it's
a lot of
yeah.
work. Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
gotta give them all the what and all the
hmm
why so they
And
can
if I
come back
leave
and tell you the how.
And if I leave something out because it's so obvious to me, it
Yeah,
won't get done. It's like, well, you
right.
didn't tell me to do that. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
So
Or
yeah,
you told me something too late, and if I had known that sooner, we would have taken a different approach, right? That's the worst, you could situation you could be in.
yes, yes,
So
so
it sounds like you got a lot of feature evolution, a lot of strategic
yes,
goals to continue to work on through this year. So
yes,
that's very exciting.
yes,
If we fast forward now, Joanna, again, even further into the future, I asked you to go back to your Yukon days. Let's go
yes,
forward 10 years from now.
yes.
What are we hoping people are saying about Simply Here and just innovation and accessibility in general?
Yeah, I mean, I really, if, I'd be thrilled if people associate Simply Here with with a tool, a service that helps really reduce stress,
Yeah.
improve communication. A lot of it is just missing information
Mm,
that leads to extra stress that
yeah.
people really don't want to have. I mean, and I think that if I can help, if I can have impact on families
Yeah.
who said, this app really helped me just, keep track of everything going on with my parents,
Mhm.
etc. Or and then beyond that, if there's an organization like a community center or a home health care or some kind of living facility that said this really helped our staff to
Sure.
communicate with families, it
Hmm.
cut down on the number of like phone calls and emails that we the same questions we get all the time. We just just save time with all of that, and it just it helped our staff. They're not as stressed out, and families have peace of mind. So if I can
Yeah.
get those, if people can say those things, I'd be very happy
You'd
with
be
that.
very happy, right? That would be an
Yeah,
amazing legacy for you. I
yeah.
appreciate that. I
Because I
appreciate
mean,
that.
we're all like, I'm a member of the sandwich generation, and
Yep.
there's a lot of people,
Yep.
that are
Yep.
just too much
Yeah.
going on. Yeah.
It is a lot. It is a lot. Joanna, how do we find you? Where do folks get in touch with you?
Oh, yes. You can email me, Joanna at simplyhere.com.
Mhm.
And then you could follow me on Instagram at simplyhere, on Facebook as well. Um,
Web
and check out our
website
website,
simplyhere.com.
simplyhere.com. Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank
So,
you, Joanna. We have been speaking with Joanna
yes.
Rosenberg, CEO and founder of Simply Here. Joanna, I just want to thank you for anyone looking to do the mission driven kind of work that Simply Here is doing, you're trying to solve hard problems and difficult challenges with what you're doing around accessibility. So thanks for doing that. I know there's a
Oh,
million things you could do, but thank
yeah.
you for doing these things. I really appreciate it. And we'd like to stay in touch, follow what Simply Here is doing, and come
Yes.
back and see us again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Great to talk to you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.